Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. 15 years of marriage build a rhythm. You don't even think about it anymore. You just move through the steps like muscle memory. That Tuesday started no different. I was making eggs while Ashley packed Ava's lunch and reminded Noah about his shoes. It was the usual background noise of our mornings. Ashley looked tired but composed. She'd been working late on the new museum renovation her firm had taken on. It was her biggest project yet, and she carried it like a badge of pride. I told her that once this job wrapped up, she deserved a long vacation. She smiled, half distracted, checking her phone. I watched her, not suspiciously, just noticing. There was a time she'd wake up humming or make jokes about my terrible cooking. Lately, her laughter felt timed, like she was performing for the kids' sake. Nothing dramatic, just a small change in tone that you'd only catch if you'd known someone as long as I'd known her. She mentioned a delivery team coming by later to drop off materials for the project. Said she'd set up a temporary guest code on the front lock so they could get in if she wasn't home. I nodded. It made sense. I didn't think about it again. After breakfast, Ava rushed to finish a science model she'd forgotten, and Noah tried convincing me that brushing teeth twice a day was too much for kids. I laughed, handed him his backpack, and kissed them both goodbye at the door. Ashley lingered a moment longer. She adjusted my collar like she used to, smiled faintly, and said, "Don't forget your meeting at 9." Her tone was normal. Everything looked normal. But as I walked to the car, I caught her through the window staring at her phone again, her face unreadable. I brushed it off. Marriage has quiet days and busy ones, that's all. Looking back now, I can see that morning for what it really was. The last ordinary day before everything fell apart. That same week, on Thursday morning, I left home in a rush. I had a client meeting across town and forgot the folder with the project estimates. Around 10, I turned back to grab it. The house was quiet. Ashley had left early for a site inspection. I went straight to my home office to grab the folder. As I passed through the kitchen, I noticed her tablet open on the counter. A receipt email glowed on the screen. Hotel Serenity, Lakeside Branch. Dinner for 2. The timestamp was Tuesday night, the same evening she'd said she was working late at the office. My first reaction wasn't anger, it was confusion. I double-checked the date, the location, and the total. It was nothing extravagant, but it wasn't work-related either. I stared at the sender's name, Thomas. The message line read, "Thank you for last night." I stood there for a long minute, trying to decide whether to close the email or read more. My hand hovered over the screen, then I shut it off. I didn't want to be that person who snooped. Maybe it was a client dinner. Maybe nothing. That evening, Ashley was unusually cheerful at dinner, talking about flooring samples and lighting choices. Her laughter sounded real this time, and I almost believed it. I wanted to. After she went upstairs to put the kids to bed, I walked into the kitchen and plugged in her smartwatch. It had died earlier. The screen lit up automatically, and a text flashed before disappearing. "Can't wait to see you again. T." I stared at the watch, the little glow fading as it locked itself. When she came down a few minutes later, I asked how the inspection went. She said, "Long, but good. The client loved our concept." Her voice didn't shake. She smiled like nothing was wrong. I nodded, forced a small smile. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, hearing her soft breathing beside me. I kept asking myself the same quiet question. What if this isn't all in my head? 2 days passed before I looked for answers. I told myself I was only checking for peace of mind, not proof. Saturday morning, while Ashley took Ava to her art class, I opened the smart lock app on my phone. The new guest code she'd mentioned had been used twice that week, once at 8:15 a.m. on Tuesday and again on Friday around 8:30 a.m., both times right after I'd left for work. Something in me settled, cold and heavy. I didn't panic, didn't slam anything. I just knew. That afternoon, Ashley said she had to meet a supplier for quick measurements at a cafe near her office. I told her I'd be working late at the client site and might not make it home until after 7. She nodded, relieved, thinking our paths wouldn't cross. Instead, I wrapped up early and drove toward her office. 10 minutes later, I saw her step out of the cafe with a man I didn't recognize, apparently Thomas. Mid-30s, sharp suit, confident in a way that drew attention. She laughed at something he said and touched his arm like it was a habit, not a mistake. Then they got into his car and drove off together. I sat there for a full minute before starting my engine. No yelling, no chasing. I drove home, printed out the hotel receipt from the tablet, and saved a screenshot of the lock history. Evidence wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. That night, after dinner, I waited until the kids were asleep. Ashley came downstairs wearing a sweatshirt. I said her name once, steady, not loud. "Who's Thomas?" "A contractor. He's helping with the museum job." "Why are you asking?" I slid the printed email across the table. Her hands trembled. "Ashley," I said quietly, "I don't need a story. I need the truth." She looked down, tears starting before words. I didn't plan for it. It just happened. I was lonely, I guess. It's been 6 months, but I ended it. Half a year of lies told with that same calm smile. I stood, voice low. "If you ended it, good. But you're not staying here tonight." She blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" I said, "you can love me from somewhere else." Ashley froze like she hadn't heard me right. "Arnold, don't do this. Please, just listen." "I have," I said, "for 6 months without knowing it." She started crying, real tears this time, not dramatic, just silent ones that slid down and hit the table. "It's not what you think. It's over. I made a mistake. I didn't want to hurt you." "You didn't want to hurt me, but you did. You didn't want to destroy this family, but you already have." I kept my voice calm. "You have 1 hour. Pack your things and leave." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. "Arnold, please, think about the kids." "I am," I said. "That's exactly why you're leaving tonight." She followed me upstairs, begging, trying to touch my arm. I didn't pull away fast, just enough to stop her hand. I opened the closet, pulled out one of her suitcases, and set it on the bed. "Take what you need. I'll explain it to Ava and Noah." She sank onto the edge of the bed. "What do I tell them?" "The truth, if you can still remember what that sounds like." For a moment she folded clothes mechanically, wiping her eyes. I walked downstairs, needing space. 20 minutes later, Ava came into the kitchen. "Why is Mom crying?" she asked. I knelt beside her. "Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt people they love," I said. "Mom needs a little time away, okay? But you and Noah are safe. That won't change." She nodded slowly, sensing there was more but not asking. When Ashley came down, suitcase in hand, her face was pale. She looked at me one last time. "Is this really what you want?" I met her eyes. "No, Ashley, but it's what your choices left me." She hesitated, opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. The door shut softly behind her. That night, for the first time in 15 years, I lay in bed alone. The silence didn't hurt. It just felt final, like a sentence finally ending with a period. Days blurred after she left. The kids adjusted faster than I expected. Ava focused on school projects. Noah clung to me like a shadow. Nights were the hardest. Ashley called often at first, sometimes to check on the kids, sometimes just to talk. Her voice carried that mix of guilt and desperation people have when they finally realize what they've lost. "Arnold," she said one night, "I can't sleep. I keep replaying it in my head. I ruined everything." "You did," I said quietly, "but at least you know it now." Her firm reassigned her project to another designer. I heard through a mutual friend that she'd had a breakdown in a meeting after the news. Thomas, the man she'd risked everything for, stopped answering her calls once the gossip spread. He'd gotten what he wanted and moved on. She sent long messages late at night, half apologies, half memories. I stopped replying after a while. There's no point in arguing with regret. Meanwhile, I settled into a routine. Mornings were simple: eggs, coffee, kids off to school. Evenings, homework, and quiet dinners. I focused on keeping the house steady so the kids wouldn't feel the cracks. Ava started helping Noah more, like she understood I was trying to hold everything together. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at the empty chair at the table, then back at me. She never said it out loud, but she knew her mother had done something that couldn't be undone. Ashley tried to see them every weekend, but she'd show up late or cancel at the last minute. The shine she once had was gone. She looked smaller, drained. I felt pity, but not love. One night, after putting the kids to bed, I got another call from her. "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" she asked. I already did, I said. But forgiveness doesn't mean you get to come back. The line went silent. For the first time, I think she finally understood what goodbye really meant. By spring, I'd filed for divorce. There wasn't much left to discuss. Ashley didn't fight it. Maybe she was too tired, or maybe she knew she didn't have ground to stand on. The hearing lasted 15 minutes. The judge granted me custody, and she got visitation every other weekend. Simple, clean, quiet, like closing a file. The first few weekends, the kids came back distant. They said her new apartment was small and cold. Ava said she caught Mom crying in the kitchen. Noah asked if she could come live with us again. I told him, not right now, buddy. Some choices take a long time to fix. Ashley tried to hold on to what was left of her old life, but everything kept slipping. Her firm let her go after the museum project's funding was audited. The relationship she'd destroyed our marriage for had ended, and her career followed right after. I didn't celebrate it. Watching someone fall apart doesn't make you whole, but I won't lie. It felt like balance, the kind the world quietly restores when words won't. We spoke only about the kids. No more late-night calls, no more tears. She'd text, "Can I pick them up Saturday?" I'd reply, "Yes." 10 a.m. That was it. Ava became more serious, more guarded. Noah kept his innocence. I learned to do everything myself. Meals, laundry, bedtime stories. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. Sometimes, on rare nights when the house was quiet, I'd think about those first years with Ashley, how we built everything from nothing. Then I'd remember how easily she threw it away. A year earlier, she had everything: family, career, respect. Now she had an empty apartment, a reputation she couldn't repair, and the echoes of her own choices. I didn't destroy her. She did that herself. By the time the divorce papers arrived in the mail, signed and sealed, I didn't feel victory. I just felt done. A year after the divorce, life finally found its balance again. It wasn't perfect, but it was steady. The house no longer echoed with tension. I started jogging before sunrise. It wasn't about fitness. It was about clearing space in my head. Ashley visited every other weekend. She was careful now, polite, reserved, grateful when I agreed to small favors. Her energy was different. She'd lost the confidence she once carried into every room. Sometimes she looked like she wanted to say something but never did. One Saturday, she lingered by the car after dropping the kids off. "You've done a good job with them," she said softly. "I'm just doing what needs to be done," I replied. She smiled weakly. "You always did." For a moment, we just stood there, silent. Then she got in her car and drove away. At night, after the kids were asleep, I'd sometimes think about the man I used to be, the one who believed stability was permanent. That man was gone. But the one who replaced him was stronger, calmer, and less afraid of the truth. I never became bitter. I just stopped pretending love alone could hold a family together. There were days I'd catch myself wondering if Ashley was okay. But the thought passed. She was living her new life, and I was living mine. Different paths, same lesson. The scars remained, but they stopped bleeding, and that, I realized, was its own kind of healing. One morning there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, Ashley stood there. Her hair was shorter, her shoulders thinner, her confidence gone. She held an envelope in her hand. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. I nodded toward the kitchen. "You can come in." She sat at the same table where I'd once confronted her, the same spot where everything had broken. She looked around like she barely recognized it. "The city's reviewing my old project," she said, placing the envelope down. "Thomas signed off on invoices I didn't approve. They're saying I was involved. I might lose my license." I looked at her for a long time. "Do you want my advice or my sympathy?" "Just the truth," she said quietly. "Then tell them everything," I said. "Tell the truth, all of it. You've tried every other way." She nodded slowly, eyes wet. I didn't realize how far I'd fallen until now. "You didn't fall," I said. "You walked. One choice at a time." We sat in silence. Then she left without another word. I leaned on the counter where she used to stand. Ava called from upstairs, asking if I'd seen her notebook. Noah hit the wrong piano key and laughed at himself. I smiled. Life wasn't what I'd planned, but it was honest. And that, I decided, was enough. Because sometimes the real victory isn't keeping what breaks. It's knowing when to let it go. Thank you for watching.